You're listening to the Really Useful Podcast. This is the tech podcast for technophobes from makeuseof.com. My name is Christian Corley, and joining me is one of my fellow editors from the site. It's Gavin Phillips. Recently, I've switched internet providers, and so in the UK we have three, but unless you live in Hull, we have two main ways of getting internet. One of those is on an Openreach network, which is built by BT, which is fibre broadband, and then we have cable internet through Virgin Media, which is a company that bought up lots of smaller cable companies about 20 years ago. And I just moved to Virgin Media, which means I get about 40 megabits per second faster than I got with, I think that's right, I'm not sure. And then I got on the Openreach, which I was billed by Vodafone. What are you on, Gavin?
I am with BT, which is the national UK provider,
Yeah.
using their Openreach network. When I lived within Penzance town itself, where I live in Cornwall in the UK, we were on one of the first super fast fiber to the premises rollouts.
Ooh.
So I had very, very nice internet connection when I lived in Penzance itself. Having now moved roughly 3 miles from the centre of Penzance, I no longer get that internet.
No.
So we're back on a fiber to the cabinet connection, which is still decent enough. But here in the UK, you can also go on to the provider, the Openreach website, and see where they're planning to build the next rollout, the next phase of the rollouts for fiber to the premises, which is obviously what you want. You want fiber, fast connection.
Yes.
So on this map, you go on and I type in my postcode, and it shows every single area around the village that I live in being upgraded between now and 2025, and a small blob where I live, which is not being upgraded.
They know it's you.
Sometime near 2030.
You abandoned them, and they know.
Yeah. I really I shot myself in the foot big time, basically.
Let me have a look. I'm just going to check my own here, but I've mistyped my postcode because I'm an idiot. So I shouldn't even need to type it because it just comes up as a suggestion. So this is Openreach's FTTP checking site, and it tells me that superfast fiber is available at your address, but it's not. I must have gone on the wrong. Have I gone on the wrong website? Because I know the superfast fiber is available. It doesn't tell me anything about the FTTP rollouts. Oh well, never mind. Anyway, so I've got really fast internet now. Anyway, through Virgin Media, but it doesn't matter how fast your broadband internet is, whether it's super fast or a struggling DSL with 10 megabits per second. If you don't put your router in the right place, your Wi-Fi coverage in your house is going to be rubbish, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's incredible actually how much of a difference it makes. If you stick it in the cupboard under the stairs, surrounded by shoes and potentially concrete, then you're just not going to get a good Wi-Fi connection.
Have you tried that?
Well, I mean, I've tried it for an experiment. Where in your house, your router needs as much area around it basically as possible, but you also want to get it into a position where it can broadcast throughout the entire building. So it's no good sticking it in your kitchen if you use your computer in your office at the opposite end of the house.
Exactly. See? Yeah. The problem with a lot of these positioning issues is that the outlets, the inlet port that has been installed by an engineer at some point in the past is always on an exterior wall, and then they always provide you with a sort of a 1 meter cable for the router, don't they? So you're kind of limited where you're going to actually put the actual router.
Absolutely. And I think for most people in that situation, because, I mean, none of us like to have loads of cables traipsing around the house, do we? So you do kind of default to where the input is and you just stick it there and hope for the best.
Yeah,
And then I guess you end up going out then and buying like Wi-Fi repeaters or boosters or whatever to
yeah,
make the signal stronger
yeah,
because you're left with not many other options.
yeah. I mean, I know where the best place to put router is in my house, but there's no way my wife will let me put it there.
You have to buy a prettier, more exciting router then.
Or a larger house or something. I don't know. Um, so I mean, there are various ways around this. Positioning is really important, but it might be. I'm at the moment. I'm planning on buying an extension coaxial cable of the right. I can't remember the exact code for it at the moment. The right type for cable, and then moving the router to the position where the old router is, where I know I can get better coverage. But
Uh,
there's also the option of switching your router to modem mode and then using a router connected to the modem mode router, isn't there? And that can give you a better option in terms of coverage and positioning of devices and routing cables and things.
yeah, absolutely. Especially if you can then like keep your cables really tucked quite close to your skirting
Yeah,
boards or whatever, and run them behind walls and what have you if you're allowed to do that. If it's your home, obviously, if you're in a rental property, don't drill anything without permission because that could get you into a lot of trouble. The other option, of course, is the PowerNet cable. I use those throughout my house. As the house, it's not a massive house, but to get a good connection to my computer in my office, the using a direct Ethernet cable is way better served
yeah,
over the power cables.
yeah, definitely. Um, I power line adapters I've used extensively in the past. I don't tend to use them at the moment because I basically work next to the router, but that might change in the near future. So, and power line adapters, I mean, they typically the original ones they were an Ethernet cable into the power line adapter. Then you plug that in. It has a port pass-through plug, so you can still plug things in to the mains. And then where your computer is, or maybe a small network switch, you would then connect it up there and then have everything connected to that. But more recently, they're available with wireless, aren't they? So you can like power line adapter connect to the mains, and then where it comes out the mains, you have a little wireless hub there.
Yeah, so those ones are really good because you can port wireless around your house as well. Because some of them are dual use as well, so you still get an Ethernet connection in the bottom of them, but you can still have wireless Wi-Fi connection from it as well. So those ones are really, really handy
Yeah,
if you're in a room where you're switching between a laptop and your desktop or you've got an Xbox or a PS5 or whatever plugged in. So it gives you way, way more options.
I had an old switch that I picked up from like a junk box at an old employer that was going out to the bin. I thought, I'll take that home and I'll use that. And I put it away and I never used it. And then it came to the point where I needed a switch. So, sorry, to the listener, a switch is basically, it's kind of like an adapter. So you plug in an Ethernet cable on one side and then you use the other Ethernet ports to it's kind of a splitter to split the signal. And I forgot that I had it, so I ended up buying another one, which is lovely. It was only like 10, 15 quid, not expensive. And then I put it in the same box, and I put my hand in to find it, pulled it out, and I ended up and I didn't even realize I was using the old one for about 18 months. And I don't think there's any difference in the speed between the two. And I spent all that money. If you're looking for a way to position your router, there are various things that you need to consider. With as Gavin said, it needs to have space around it. Plaster walls usually aren't a problem. However, concrete walls, they are steel supports, they are lead line tiles and paint, L-shaped structures, and so if you're hoping for wireless expansion into non-standard rooms such as an attic or a basement, then you're kind of going to have to whistle in many cases because these things are major problems to a strong wireless signal, and these are the sort of things that would then lead you to using a power line adapter or Wi-Fi routers. If you want to use wireless in an outbuilding as well, which I was talking to Gavin about this earlier, I'm having one built, that you can run an Ethernet cable to the outbuilding, connect it to a switch, and hope for the best there. Shouldn't be a problem. Or there's also specialist routers, wireless repeaters, I beg your pardon, that you can mount on the outside of your house. Have you seen those?
I have seen those, yeah. Some of them are really good. Some of them are really powerful as well. You can
Yeah.
broadcasting not just to the end of the garden, but down to the fields and the cows beyond.
Yeah, I was thinking about actually setting one up and then kind of flogging internet to people visiting the football pitch out the back.
You could create a nice little login portal,
Yeah,
cheap price.
yeah,
You'd probably get a few takers.
yeah, totally. Why not? Probably contractually blocked, but that's
Yeah,
who
yeah.
cares about that? So there's a few things that you can do to find the position. And a more open plan house is better, generally speaking, for wireless internet. So you can avoid walls and obstructions, avoid devices that emit interference. This is actually quite important, and it's probably something we should dwell on for a few moments, because placing a router next to, say, a wireless phone, that's not a good idea, is it?
No, because they use similar transmission bands, and
Yeah,
you will get
you're
interference.
going to
Same
get
as that.
interference.
Don't put your router on top of your microwave if you use it frequently. Things like that.
Who
It's
does
just not.
that?
Well, people, people do a lot of things. People.
I do know people. I'm going to let you into a little secret here. I don't have a microwave.
Well, I don't have one either,
Oh,
but
good.
obviously we're not people.
We are automatons.
But
We can microwave our own food using brainwaves.
yeah, precisely. If you do have a microwave, don't put your router next to it. They're not friends.
No, they're not. Just while we're on this topic of kitchen things, I don't have a dishwasher either.
Oh no, I don't have one of those.
Although having 3 children has really made me challenge that decision.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just pure elbow grease and hatred for the dishes.
So yeah, baby monitors again, microwave ovens as we mentioned, motors, and I imagine that's remote control devices as well. Your neighbour's Wi-Fi network, and older Bluetooth hardware. They can all emit interference that can mess up your internal network aspirations. If you wanted to use a wireless router, they can all just interfere it. They are the router's worst enemy. It's a good idea, actually, is when you're placing your router into position, to draw a floor plan and highlight where you have devices that can broadcast signals that may interrupt it, and then work out where the best place for the router is based on that.
Yeah, absolutely. You always disable things that you're not using intermittently as well. Like a baby monitor, obviously you need your baby monitor at night or
Yeah,
during the day if the baby has a nap. But in between times, make sure you switch it
not so
off so it's
much.
not
Yeah,
broadcasting and interfering in the interim. Things like
yeah.
that can help.
Totally, and I mean, if you're going to leave your router near a microwave, make sure you don't microwave some popcorn whilst you're watching the latest blockbuster on Disney Plus.
Do it first. Yeah?
Exactly.
Big brain move. Big
Yeah.
brains.
Other things you should do is don't put your router in the basement or the attic unless that's the only place that you want to have a signal. Because if you want it to spread to the rest of the house, it's not going to. You've got flooring and insulation, concrete, other things that are just going to restrict the signal from moving from one level to the next. And avoid external windows as well, because you're basically sending the signal outdoors. So, for instance, if you put your router next to a window and only half of its possible emitted signal is coming into your property, the rest of it's for the birds.
Which we know are remote controlled anyway.
Well,
So you could be helping out in some ways. But no, as Christian said, I mean, if you put it near the window, you're sending it out the window, which is no good to anybody, is it?
exactly. Unless, you've shared the password with a passing vagrant and he wants to get on the internet.
Or it could be your kids have put it near the window so they can share your Wi-Fi connection with the neighbours. So
Yeah, which they would never do. And you may also consider placing your router not on a flat surface, but fixing it to the wall. Now, that's not really easy with ISP provided routers, but if you're going to spend money on a router from Linksys or D-Link or whatever, they come with mounting equipment, screws, roll plugs, whatever, mounting plates that you can then attach them to the wall. Higher position on a wall means better coverage throughout your property.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, on the subject of ISP routers, that is another way that you can sometimes, but not all the time, get a bit of a signal boost throughout your house is by buying a standalone router from a reputable company, Netgear, Asus, or similar. They may have better network configurations and almost always have way more options for you to use on the router itself anyway. So it can be worth. In the UK, you're absolutely allowed to do that. In the US, you might have to check the terms of your ISP agreement or your contract with the company, because I know that sometimes they get a bit iffy and try and charge you a fee for not using their router, which seems ridiculous, but it definitely happens. So definitely double check that before you buy an alternative router.
Yeah, definitely. There is something else you can do actually with the router itself. By default, especially with newer routers, they will probably be broadcasting at 5 gigahertz. Now that's faster, but it has a shorter range. So if you're able to switch to 2.4 gigahertz or set up a secondary network at 2.4 gigahertz, you may well find that internet coverage stretches to rooms that it won't with 5 gigahertz.
Yeah, absolutely. So quite a lot of them come with a dual band setup out of the
Yeah,
box these days, don't they?
yeah,
So, and you can even get, so if you buy, going back to the previous point, if you buy a separate router, you can get a tri-band router, which will have multiple bands. So you may have a single 2.4 gigahertz band, which is slightly slower but has a much larger broadcast range, and then you may have two 5 gigahertz bands. You may be able to switch between them as well to change it to 2.4 bands, and so forth.
well, that's useful. I think, but the best thing about this is that there is the technology there that will save you from having to drill holes through your house to run Ethernet cables and things. I mean, we redecorated some rooms recently and found that some holes that were drilled about 10 years ago were still there. I'd forgotten to fill them up. A little bit
Yeah, it's
embarrassing.
when we moved into this house, one of the first things I had to do was ask my father-in-law to come round with a very large drill to drill some holes. Even in that situation where there are alternatives, sometimes drilling a big hole is just the only way to get the job done.
Yeah. I mean, my wife would not agree with that, but yeah, sometimes you have to. Yeah, you do. Now, I'm actually running two networks in my house at the moment, and they're both on 5 gigahertz because I've still got a few days left with my previous ISP. And there's been no interference between the two routers so far.
That's interesting. So are they? So you know, routers have different channels, don't they?
They
So are
do.
the two routers running different channels?
Exactly, which is what I was going to come to, because we did mention with the neighbour's router in there earlier, but there is, I mean, this is a kind of a subtopic all of its own, isn't it? That if you find that your wireless internet isn't working too well, it may be because it's clashing with your neighbour's wireless internet. And with older routers, this isn't really a problem with modern routers, but with older routers, you can manually change the channel to then find a different area, as it were, of the wireless network signal
Yes,
to use that your neighbour's router isn't using.
absolutely. So most modern routers now come with automatic channel analysis, and if they realize that your 2.4 gigahertz wireless is running on the same channel as your neighbors, it may well auto correct to a different channel, which is quite handy. So with 2.4 gigahertz, there are 12 channels, and it's a bit like your TV almost. Is that the right analogy? You change the channel to something else and you switch to something else. So with 2.4 gigahertz, if you were on channel 6 and so was your neighbor and you were in close proximity, you may get a bit of crossover, a bit of interference that causes both of your Wi-Fi connection speed to suffer. You're not going to get any weird data crossover. You're not going to suddenly start picking up your neighbor's, email or what have you. That's not how internet and Wi-Fi works, but it can slow it down. But you could go into your router settings and switch the 2.4 gigahertz channel to a different one, and you would then have much less interference and hopefully a better Wi-Fi connection.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I remember back in the day, many years ago, we'd even lived in a different house then, and we had a little wireless router, a little BT wireless router that I bought from eBay, and it had there was a hack which would make your internet faster using this router.
Right.
And it's a little BT router, not very big at all, about the size of a phone these days, like a phablet. And it would overheat slightly, so you would have to stack it on a pile of 2p coins, one for each foot. And anyway, so you could hack it, you get slightly faster internet than was publicly available. But and I thought it was wonderful, but it burnt out. So we then I think we ended up switching ISPs. But whatever happens, we got a modem router sent from the ISP, and it was prone to this problem of interference with the neighbours. So I went to the trouble of having to manually switch it, maybe on a daily basis. And what I hadn't realised was probably a week into doing this, it'd become habitual. So it got to the point where I was doing it without checking if there was any interference. And they'd rolled out an update about a week after I started doing it. I was doing it for about another month until someone I worked with pointed out that they'd sent an update. And then it was, the channel selection was completely automated.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
Yeah. So wireless networking should be relatively simple and straightforward, but quite often it isn't the way. You can get the plug and play advantage of a new router, switches on, connects to the network, and brings that signal into your home. But, if it's not working right, you can take the time to go through the manuals and stuff. But if you have a computer or a laptop that has an Ethernet port, it really is just quicker to just plug it in directly, isn't it? You're going to get faster internet anyway.
Yeah, precisely. If the option's there and you don't need mobility, go for an Ethernet connection. Go for wired every time. It's faster. Yeah. And you'll get a more consistent signal. There's not the issue of Wi-Fi dropouts that everybody experiences, and overall your internet browsing or gaming or streaming experience will be much improved.
Which is why games consoles come with an Ethernet connection.
Yeah, absolutely. Gosh, I remember using the Wi-Fi adapter for my Xbox 360 back in the day, and the patchiness of the controls and the connection and the dropouts would make some games just unplayable at times.
Yeah. So Ethernet all the way where possible. That's basically the lesson from today's podcast, isn't it?
Yeah. Go out, get a cable, get a power line adapter, get everything else you need.
Absolutely. So you've been listening to the Really Useful podcast from makeuseof.com. Everything we've discussed in this week's show you'll find in the show notes. It's goodbye from myself, Christian Cawley, and him, Gavin Phillips. Until next time.